Hi gang, it's Todd Nauck, and I'm back with part 3 of this Black Bolt of the Inhumans illustration. It's the Copic marker illustration, and this time instead of doing full color, I'm doing a grayscale. I'll be using different shades of warm gray and cool gray to render Black Bolt here and convey, in a sense, it'll kind of convey what colors the grays would be representing, even though it will just be essentially looking a little bit like a black and white illustration. It'll kind of trick the eye into seeing color as this comes together. So I've started with a C5 here. It's a cool gray, value C5 as my base color. So picking a light source that's kind of from above and a bit to the left somewhat, with a little bit of reflected light as well. But pretty much above and to the left. So I'm coming in and just keeping that in mind, and where those highlights would fall, using the white of the board as a highlight, leaving that open. I might be filling that in a little bit, so those highlights won't stay as large as they are here right now, but I can always fill in more color. And this is also a battle damaged Black Bolt, so it's going to get a little bit gritty as we go along. So then with a C6, I'm coming in to darken the opposite side shadows here on the right hand side for the most part, and I will be doing some pretty lush blending of the markers here. It won't be as the cuts will blend into a softer sort of look as we go. I'm really going to render this one out more so than I have in my previous videos, which kind of take more of a kind of a animation sort of cut shaped feel. This will be a bit more smoothly rendered. So it's just coming in with that C6 and just layering the color. It's a nice thing with the Copic markers is that you can layer color on top of color and get different levels of shading and gradation. So I've got the basics down. Now I'm coming back in with the C5 a little bit to blend in some of that C6 in with the C5 a little bit more. It's starting to kind of smooth out some of those harder edges from the darker shade into the base shade. It just really is just a second coat of paint. And now what I've done is I've used a much lighter shade, a C3, and I'm going to blend in those white spots. I'm really making the gradations very subtle and smooth by filling it in, and then covering over that base coat, that whole C5, coming in with that C3 to really smooth it all out, and using that same C3 as my initial shadow shade in the lighter parts of his costume, the zigzag of the chest stripes and the tuning fork on his forehead, coming in with a step lighter of a cool gray shade, a C2, to start to blend that in a little bit more, smooth that out a little bit more. Coming in with an even lighter shade of cool gray, a C1, blending that C3 to C2 to C1. It's continually moving lighter and lighter into the wider parts of the illustration, using a little C0 for the whites of his eyes. Now I've totally switched gears here. I moved to the warm grays. The cool grays were good for his uniform to convey that kind of black, bluish black sort of look. But with his flesh tones, that's going to be a warmer sort of color because he's a Caucasian guy. So it's going to be kind of a mixture of reds and yellows and white to kind of create that flesh tone. Well, I'm using, if we were to, like, say, we were to like paint with like watercolors or something. So since those are warm colors, reds, yellows, oranges are warm colors, I'm using a warm gray here. So I'm using shades of warm gray, though I believe I started with a warm 1, came in with some warm 2. Now I'm darkening up to with a warm 3 for more of the shadows. Now I'll probably be coming back in with a lighter shade again to smooth this all out. But once you start to see the warm grays contrasting against the cool grays, your mind starts to fill in the blank of this is a flesh tone. So yeah, here I've come back with that warm 1 to smooth everything out. It's blending those darker shades, and when that ink starts to move over those darker shades, it and layers on top of itself, coming in with a little warm 2 to beef up some of those shadowy areas, it starts to blend it out more and more. You can also use a colorless blender if you'd like, but if you don't, just layer those lighter colors over those darker colors and you're going to do just fine. Now I need to forgot to do his shoulders that were from his torn parts of his costume, so I'm coming back in with a warm 1, start to shade in with a warm 2, come in with a little more shade with a warm 3, then blend that all back out with a warm 1, and his shoulders now match the same level as his face. Now, since this is a battle damaged Black Bolt, got to put a little blood on his face and costume here. I'm using a warm shade of gray, a warm gray, because the blood would be red. Red is a warmer color. So coming in with a darker shade of warm gray than I did for his face. So I started with a warm 5 and coming in with some warm 6. And even though I didn't pencil some of these battle damaged areas on his face, I just using the Copic markers to add a few more bloody touches can come in and put some more drops where I felt necessary. But same as when I was inking, you don't want to over render or put in too many details that it clutters up your figure. So that's something to keep in mind. So now it's time to put in a background element using a neutral gray. I chose neutral gray so that the cool gray of his costume and the warm gray of his face would stand out. So a neutral gray is a third type of gray that Copic offers. They also offer a fourth type of gray called a toner gray. Haven't ventured into the toner grays just yet, but I should look into those. But it's a different shade of gray. But most of my stuff, most of the things I work with when I do my grayscale illustrations are cool grays and warm grays. Cool grays for the blues and purples, sometimes the greens. Greens can be a little iffy. Sometimes I use some neutral gray for green, but then the warm grays would be the reds, yellows, oranges, flesh tones for Caucasians through African Americans and Asians. You know, pretty much the warm tones are gonna cover there. They're good for the brown colors as well, or tan colors. So so just texturing out a background here, just layering in just for the fun of it, just from light to dark and darker on top of that. And I won't be blending in this background. I'll just let it be as it is for the most part. So that's a kind of a fun thing with doing the grays here, is that you can kind of create the illusion of color, even though it is just gray. Now what's fun is to take a Jelly Roll white gel pen, come in and put a few little highlights, especially like on the blood. You put a couple little highlights on the blood there, and it just kicks it up a notch. Throw a little extra detail here in the background, and we're pretty much almost done. So I really appreciate y'all tuning in. Thanks so much. This piece was a lot of fun to do. It's fun to get to show y'all a grayscale commission. Hopefully I can do some more grayscales as we go. I got some more videos to come in the near future, but in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this. Here's a full scan of it. You can see how the shades of the grays kind of convey those colors. Really appreciate it, guys, and I will see y'all again real soon.